Replaced is a 2.5D action-adventure game with a super impressive graphical style, all wrapped up in a cyberpunk-esque thriller. This game has its presentation well organized, but is the gameplay just as slick as the looks? In Replaced, you play as Reach, an AI who is merged with Dr. Warren's human body after an accident. At first, it isn't entirely clear who the enemy actually is and who is fighting for the right cause. As an AI, you think you understand everything completely, but it turns out to be much more complex than you expect. You discover more and more about the corruption in Phoenix City and the reason for your existence. By the end of this adventure, you will undoubtedly be a completely different person. After all, Phoenix City is full of dangerous locations from which you won't easily escape alive. Fortunately, you also receive help from an unexpected source, which ensures positive character development. Replaced is honestly one of the most stylish indie games in existence. Every frame is a feast for the eyes, which is why you are invited to take a moment every now and then to enjoy the view. The pixel art style is simply fantastic, and combined with the cinematography, this game manages to captivate you from the very first moment. Unfortunately, the story is less compelling and also too long-winded. As a result, it is possible that you gradually start to lose focus and secretly hope that the end is approaching. The gameplay often fails to live up to expectations even though it looks beautiful. Many platform sections are a visual spectacle, but incredibly frustrating to execute. Your character moves quite slowly and is generally not very mobile. It is also sometimes unclear what you can and cannot grab, leading to many moments of trial and error. Despite the creative implementation of a double jump, the level design is not particularly admirable. As your adventure progresses, you do receive interesting gadgets that make the gameplay, such as jumping and sneaking, slightly more varied. One of these gadgets, for example, allows you to hack certain machines or mechanisms, making it a bit easier to continue your journey. Unfortunately, this is still not enough to make the gameplay more memorable, in my opinion. The same sadly applies to the combat in Replaced. Visually, there's nothing to fault, but despite the new skills you unlock, it remains quite repetitive. It often involves large groups of enemies trying to attack you one by one. Should they attempt to hit you from multiple angles, then you have the option to counter them when the game allows it. It's all very simple to understand, but the execution is a bit flawed. Also, these fights sometimes last far too long, or you encounter them too often in a short period. At a certain point, you also start to see a pattern. For example, when you are sneaking through a ventilation shaft, you can almost assume that something below you is going to fall down, landing you in another big fight. Thankfully, the bosses feel a bit more unique in terms of gameplay. There aren't that many of them, but they all have an interesting design and certain attacks require a bit more focus. These fights are a good way to test your skills. They also often manage to surprise you with a twist you don't see coming. The bosses are therefore a nice change of pace and can be quite challenging. The combat could be a bit tighter here and there, but otherwise there's little to criticize. In most cases, Replaced follows a very linear progression. There is little room for exploration and most upgrades or collectibles are not too difficult to find. However, you should not underestimate the length of this game. There are 10 chapters, and with the exception of a few, they can take at least an hour. Of course, it does depend a bit on your skill level and how much time you take to search for collectibles. And if you want to make your character a bit stronger, you also have the option to unlock certain upgrades by completing side quests. With the exception of a recurring quest where you have to beat the high score of a new arcade game every time, the rest was quite repetitive. They felt more like a way to extend the game's duration than genuinely well thought out additions. Luckily, they are optional, and you only visit this location 3 times in your entire adventure. So, in general, Replaced is a prime example of aesthetics over functionality. All 10 chapters are a visual spectacle, but as the game progresses, you start to realize that the gameplay is less interesting than you would like. Platforming doesn't always feel right and can be quite frustrating. Combat is rather repetitive, causing some fights to feel more like a chore than a fun experience. And exploring this world isn't very challenging and often doesn't offer the most remarkable rewards. Nevertheless, this game is easily to recommend if you are looking for a breathtaking sensation. There are plenty of moments that pump you full of adrenaline and leave you excited and curious for more. Replaced is undoubtedly an impressive achievement for an indie game. It's full of passion, and despite the sometimes disappointing gameplay, Phoenix City will continue to blow you away every moment. So be ready to uncover the many secrets about your origin and find out if you are capable enough to rid your city from corruption once and for all.